You are listening to the People Centric podcast, where we talk through the toughest challenges that people face at work and give practical advice to fixing those challenges. Thanks for joining our movement to create workplaces that are happier, healthier, aligned, and empowered by putting people at the center of all that we do.
Hello again, People Centric leaders back again. Guess who's back? Back again. People Centric's back. Do you guys see where I'm going? This is a song. It's a popular song. I'll give you a second. Diana, do you know who sings this?
I mean, I know the song. I'm bad with music. I know the song, but also
Shady's back.
but also it's a little dated, isn't it? It's quite an old song.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because today's topic's maybe a more of an old school managerial topic that has been brought to us. For those of you that have
we're going old school today.
We're going old school, and you might not like it. That's what's about to happen. If you've been following People Centric for a while, you know the voices. This is Matt Griswold coming to you live from my home office here in Missouri. And I'm joined again by Diana Royalty, our co-founder, COO. And Diana, this is like the third topic. I don't know. This is like the third time recently that just you and I have gotten together to do one of these. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I think it's because everyone else is really busy with clients and stuff. So that's good.
I think it's because they hear it when you and I are together and they're like, wow, we should just let them keep, like, that's fire. That's rad.
That's a better reason. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we play different roles on the team. Part of my role, or I guess one of my main roles, is I travel all over the place and I speak at conferences, and we try to, one of the things you might not know is that Don and I get together like once a quarter and we're trying to refresh the content and what are we hearing and what are we seeing, and we're trying to stay ahead of the curve, right? And the last couple of times, or at least a couple of times recently, I have been asked by directors of conferences about a particular topic that we have not necessarily created. We do talk about roundabouts, but it's not necessarily a topic that we have already created. And it is this idea of, I got this yesterday. Matt, do you have anything on how to lead the unleadable? And this is the second time this has happened fairly recently, how to lead the unleadable. And I think this is interesting because, one, I think it's kind of a shift in what we've seen the conversation of going from manager to leader. Right now we're using terms like, how do I lead these people? So that's positive. But there's also some negatives in this question, which is why we haven't really created this topic. And because I think the people that ask us, I'm going to step on some toes. I think the people that ask us about how do you lead unleadable people are hoping that I think that we get into a room and we're like, hey, all of you who are unleadable, get on this side of the room. And good. How about all of you that are trying to lead these unleadable people, get on this side of the room. Good. Now, you unleadables, let me tell you what you're doing wrong and what you need to do so you can actually, be effective in your place of employment. And that's not going to be our take. That's not going to be our take today. And so this idea of how to lead the unleadables, Diana and I are going to hash through this together and maybe talk about where the fault is in the title itself, because I think that just oozes with, man, you're already starting behind the eight ball, so to speak, if that is your stance. But then also from a manager and from an employee's perspective, what are some things that, what responsibility do we have to lead well? And maybe how has that changed over the years as well? What's the expectation of manager, leader? What's the expectation of employee now? Because I think those things, if you'd have asked this question 20 years ago, would have been completely different responses as well. And you know what, folks? Times have changed. We're just not there anymore. We're not there anymore. And so, Diana, let's jump into it and let's just take it from the title itself. When people are asking us how to lead the unleadables, give me some tips on how to lead the unleadables. We have some problems. You and I kind of talked about this just a little bit before we hit record. We have some problems with the way that's even framed in the first place. What's the problem with that title?
Man, I have two big problems with it. The first one is that the people asking us have already labeled these people as unleadable, right? They're saying, I can't lead you. You're unleadable, right? You're the problem. You don't want this. And to me, I'm like, oh, you've already labeled them as unleadable, which means you already have a stigma, right? You're already putting them in this box and said, I can't do it,
And if
or
I have that
they don't want
stigma,
it.
if I already put them in that box, what does that do to me as their leader? Like, what types of things am I doing as their leader then?
Yeah, exactly. Like you're looking for ways to confirm your bias on them, right? So if
Right.
you say they aren't leadable any single time they do something that goes against the grain or goes against your leadership, then you're going to continue to label them as unleadable. You're looking for that reason to support your narrative, your unconscious bias, whatever you want to call it. You're supporting that story in your head every single time that that person doesn't want to be led.
Yeah, I
And
think
I
the
put quotations around that.
I think the interesting part of that too is okay. Well, let's bring some of those folks on and say, well, they're referring to you as unleadable. How would you respond? And I think it's interesting to think maybe if some of those, oh, they think I'm unleadable. Well, they're not very leaderly either.
Yeah.
If we're
Well,
just gonna kind of make up those
yes,
terms there.
that's sort of my second big problem with it is that when the leaders are asking me, how do I lead unleadable people? I want to look at the leader and be like, well, what are you doing wrong? And they're going to say, oh, it's them. And I'm going to say, but I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to
Mhm.
you, right? You're the one asking. So you have to change something about what you're doing to get through to them, right? So that's my other part is like, I'm talking to the leaders about this,
Yeah.
not the people they're labeling unleadable. So I'm just like, we got to figure this out. I can't change them without asking them what's going on. You're
Yeah.
talking to me. So I got to
Let's
talk about you.
let's define it maybe just a little bit more. When somebody is saying how to lead the unleadable people, what are they really saying? Like what is the crux or the foundation of this? And I'll give my perspective on this first. It seems like and there may be many different ways to interpret this, but if I say, dang it, they're not leadable people, that means they're not doing what it is that I'm asking them to do or telling them to do or demanding that they do, or they're doing it, but they're doing it completely differently than what I would suggest that they would do. Right? I don't buy the idea that most people are just lazy and they don't get it and they don't work. Like they want to work, they want to succeed. Oftentimes we don't help them in that position to be able to succeed. And this is where I don't know. I can just imagine I was old timey turning off the radio right now in my mind. But this is where some people might be going, yeah, I saw the title. I want to hear this. And then you get into this part. It's like, wait a second. I see the direction these people are going. No, they're saying I'm the one who's at fault. And it click. And then the radio goes off. That's probably not what you're doing right now with the old timey radio there. But it is a little bit different. I think when we say somebody is unleadable, they're not doing what it is that I'm asking them to do. Would you agree and have maybe something else to add to that?
Yeah, I think that's the crux of it is like you aren't following what I want you to follow. And I think we talked a little bit about how a leader's job is to motivate, right? That's part of a leader's job is to motivate and inspire people. And I think that gets lost in this discussion about people being unleadable, right? Maybe I don't know how it gets so lost, but I think it's yeah, it's all comes down to motivation and influence and all the crux of actual leadership instead of they're just not doing what I'm telling them to do.
Yeah, and this is why I think you and I took this as like we're going back in time. This is old school management because that's what I hear whenever I say they're not able to lead these people, leading the unleadable people. I think that's somebody who's stuck with a manager's hat on that is used to managing tasks and processes and maybe the things that the people are doing, not actually used to leading the people that they're in charge of, that they're in charge of, or that they're trusting to help them do wonderful jobs. And this is what we're saying too, as part of society or part of the workforce that has changed a little bit. Used to, the manager's job was to be able to manage the process. You would hire somebody, they were just super excited to be there, right? They're super excited to have an opportunity to have a job and to get a paycheck, and they would work hard for you, and you probably liked it when they would come into your office and say, I finished that task, boss, what else do you need from me, right? And you probably, thanks, I don't know, I was Gladys or whatever, I was trying to think of an old-timey name. Thanks, Gladys, I appreciate that, here's your next task. And maybe some of you liked that mentality, and this is what you're equating to, well, they're not asking me those questions, or they don't seem like they're super motivated to do the things that I'm asking them to do. and this is where it's changed. We talk a lot about management versus leadership, and man, we've exhausted this topic over a series of podcasts, right? But the management is managing those specific tasks or processes that your people are doing. Leadership is much different, and we equate this leadership to influence, which means even those unleadable people that you're labeling, oh, they're very effective at leading some of those people or the rest of the team too. And so when we start talking about that, I think that's maybe where people are stuck. Maybe where they're stuck is they're not doing the things that I'm asking them to do. They're not asking for the next steps. They just, I don't know. They're not doing it the way that I would have them do it. And so I think that's where we get frustrated as managers of processes. Doesn't it feel like that's kind of where this whole topic comes from?
It does. And I think we forget that different people are motivated in different ways. And I feel like, I don't know, I started my career in 2000, a long time ago. And when I started it, we were in a recession, and it was very much the you're lucky you have a job mentality, right? It was sort of that you're lucky to be here, you're lucky we're paying you, and it could all implode at any minute, right? You could not have a job tomorrow because the economy is so bad, and the housing crisis and all of these things, right? It was just that time in the world. And so the way that we were motivated was kind of like, oh, we just have to like keep our jobs. That's we have to keep our jobs because there aren't any other ones out there for us to go to. So I think as the world has shifted a little bit, the motivations are different, right? I think people used to be motivated by things like pensions and the 20-year retirement plan and healthcare and all of those, and those things have kind of been stripped away. And then it was, oh, we're motivated by the promotions and the ability to move forward and the pay scale and the raises, and that's sort of shifted over time. And now it's kind of what are people really motivated by? And I think since it's so different from what the leaders were motivated by, you're struggling to say, how do I motivate this new group of people? How do I motivate people who aren't motivated by the same things that I was motivated by?
I'm going to give you a statistic, and you tell me how you feel about this. According to Gallup, just a few years ago, they put out a study that talked about 20% of managers believe that it is their job to motivate and inspire their team to do wonderful work, right?
20%.
20%. So how do you feel about that stat, and what is that saying, maybe?
Oh my gosh, that blows my mind, first of all, because to me, that number is so incredibly low. To me, that says not enough leaders recognize that their position as a leader is to inspire, motivate, and actually lead, not task manage, not crack the whip, right? This is about leading and motivating and growing your team. And that is where I think, at least the younger generations, I think all people actually really want this. It's just not how it was ever done, but want to feel valued. They want to feel inspired. They want to know they're part of something bigger. They want to know that their contribution means something. And I think all of that is where that leadership model comes into place. And 20% is staggeringly low.
That stat directly relates to the title of this podcast, How to Lead the Unleadable. Makes sense if you look at the first stat and it says, you know what, 20% of managers believe it's their job to motivate and inspire their team to do outstanding work. That's where you come up with the title of How Do I Lead These Unleadable People? Because that's those same people are answering that quiz or that survey or whatever that is, right? The job of manager has changed. We say this quite a bit too. Even another term in leadership or work that's kind of gone out the window too is boss. You don't hear boss very often because the hierarchy maybe that goes to it. In fact, I always joke from stage like most of the time it's tongue in cheek, like, okay, boss, I'll get right on that, boss, right? People don't use that. They use terms now like leader and, supervisor and, Sherpa and, whatever that is. But that also tells you that the job or the role of that person who is in a quote unquote managerial spot has also demanded change. This is something else that we've talked about quite a bit right now, but we're in the midst of this perfect storm. Don will be happy that we're talking about this because this is our number one new keynote, and I would imagine it's going to be the number one new keynote for the next 12 months, probably, because it doesn't matter what industry you are in. Don and I just did a podcast on this not too long ago, but there's two things that are happening right now. There's literally more jobs than there's people to fill. We have a lack of people, and boomers are retiring at such a faster clip than what we thought, that we were anticipating it, but not this quickly. And my thought is that they figured out they're like, oh man, these kids, I can't do it. I got to get out earlier, right? Thought I could stick it out, but I got to get out early. These kids, right? But I think those two things are colliding, and those boomers that are leaving the jobs are not going to be filled by Gen Xers, because they're kind of already in the roles that they're going to be. And the Gen X population is a smaller population. It's going to be filled by these millennials there too. And so now, if you're in this role of maybe you are one of those Gen X people who are in that managerial role or leadership role, and you're going to find yourself surrounded by more millennials than you are the boomer population. All of a sudden, that's going to demand a different type of leadership. The younger generation, you're an older millennial, if I could say it like that. You just have a different but you're kind of a Gen X. You're on the border line
I'm
there,
on the
right?
cusp. Yes, yes, that's
Yeah,
true.
you're
Yep.
you're you're long in the tooth. And there's
Okay,
I'm just trying to paint a picture for the people.
you're a haggard old lady. It's fine.
The expectation of how you are led is different. I mean, I'll use my son as an example. I have one of those Gen Zs. I have a couple of those Gen Zs right now. And man, he graduated high school last year. I think he's on his fourth different job, not because he's afraid to work, but because of the experiences, right? Oh, that wasn't what I thought it was going to be, or I didn't like how they did that. And it's amazing. It's amazing. A lot of times we say, well, we don't want to see how the sausage is made. It's amazing to see um his attitude towards that. It's like, yep, that wasn't for me. I know what I don't want to do now. That wasn't for me. And I mean, just several different jobs, several different experiences. Some of them he was good at, he just didn't want to do it anymore. It's a whole different mentality of worker, which requires a whole different mentality of leader. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and I do think it also requires better systems, right? Some of our just like communication systems are set up to fail. Some of those, I guess, let me be more specific. The way we evaluate our employees at work is set up to fail with these new generations. It's so bad. You're going to go in and you're going to say, I give you a 3 out of 5. And that employee is going to be like, well, I'm working a 5 out of 5. So peace out. Like,
Right.
I can't believe you just assigned a number to me. And we hadn't talked about it forever. And
Yeah.
I think I'm doing a good job and you're not communicating it. And you're not aligned with my values, then I'm going to go. And so I think there's so many business systems that are also set up to kind of lead to this other failure. Like you were talking about with your son, I bet he got stuck in one of those meetings and was like, I'm never doing this again. I
Yeah.
don't like how that feels. I don't like how they made me feel. I don't want to I don't want to stay in this environment, right?
Yeah,
Like,
one of those it's totally true. One of those meetings he's like, I had to drive 30 minutes to get there, and I didn't start my shift until like 11, but I had to get there for the meeting at 8. The meeting was over in like 15 minutes, and now I'm 30 minutes away, and the
yep,
meeting was all about how everybody is working bell to bell for the next foreseeable future until we get back on top of this. And he was like, I've been here he was there for less than 30 days. He's not
yeah,
super invested in this. He was doing
yeah.
well at his job, he thought, and he was like, "This sucks. I'm out." And it was,
See,
that's where you get to that other mentality of like these freaking kids. But I'm telling you, they will work.
they
But
will.
you have to relate to these kids in a different way. You have to relate to those employees in a different way. And so, okay, so let's maybe turn the page. And I think we've made the case for our stance on this. So, okay, so I'm a manager. You're saying, okay, I'm managing incorrectly. What are some of those things that I need to do then as a manager to kind of speak the language here and help lead the quote unquote unleadable people? Then what do I need to do?
Man, I hate this answer, but I'm going to say it. I hate it. But you have to talk to them. You have to talk to these people. I don't like it. I don't want to ever talk to Matt, but you know what? Here we are.
Lies.
Here.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to talk to them. You have to learn about them. You have to genuinely care about them. And you have to figure out what their goals and values are. I mean, that sounds super fluffy. It sounds like you're trying to be their friend. I didn't say that. I said you have to know about them. You have to care about them, and you have to understand how they're motivated through their goals and values, because that is what's going to keep them to stay. That's what's going to keep them coming to work every day. They're going to say, my boss genuinely cares about me and he's helping me get to this goal. My manager is vulnerable. She tells me when things are going bad. She tells me when things are going good in her life and my life. And we have a quote unquote connection, and the vibe is good.
Yeah, which you love. Well, I think one of the other things, and this is maybe another tip that I would throw out there to the managers, is be prepared for some of the responses that you might get having these conversations. Because I can imagine it's like, well, where do you want to go? What are you inspired by? Like, I need to get paid X amount more dollars, or
Right.
I want to be off half the month, or whatever. Like, just be prepared for some of the responses, because I think the old school answer might have been, well, that's not going to happen. Like, oh, that's not going to
Yeah.
work.
Like,
And they'll be
well,
like, all right, well, I'll
we
go find
all want
somewhere.
Maseratis, but like,
Right.
forget it.
So I
Yeah.
think I think one of the first things you have to do, and I love this activity. We do something like this from stage two when we ask a volunteer to come up, and I don't want to ruin the surprise. We ask a volunteer to come up, and we take steps with them. But the foundation of that whole exercise is we start where they are, which means we find common ground. So some of these folks that we're calling leading the unleadable, you need to do a good job of trying to find some common ground, something that if you are referring to them as unleadable, you need to back that thing up as I don't remember the rapper who said that, but you need to back that up as you
So many old references.
it goes with the whole the theme. But you need to back that up and get to the common theme. You need to find common ground. You got to find something that you both can say yes to before you can start to build upon those yeses. If I think they're unleadable, I already know how this conversation is going to go before they sit down in here. And I'll tell you what, they're going to come into your office or to that conversation or wherever that is with the same kind of mentality. They already know how this is going to go too. And so
Yeah.
you might need to do some things that you don't normally do during that conversation. And one of those things is to let's just find something we both agree on. Let's just
Yeah.
find something we can both come together and find an agreement on and work towards. And then we could start to build those yeses. And so I would consider that.
Yeah. And you mentioned something that we run into a lot. You said that they're going to ask for more money. They're going to ask for more people. They're going to ask for more time. And us as consultants, whenever we ask people, like, what do you need? They always say more money, more time, more resources.
Right.
That's a thing. And so we usually do this trick of like, okay, yes, we will try to get you there. We're not saying no. We want to get you there too. We want that for you. The company probably needs that. We understand that. But let's pretend we can only work with what we have. Then what do you need? What do you need if you can only use the stuff that you have? And then
Yeah.
people will start off talking about communication and vulnerability and the processes that are thorns in their sides, right? Like they start opening up about those things and saying, you know what, you're right. If we can only have this money, it would be really great if we could fix this thing, or if you could do this one thing during the week that would brighten our days or whatever. So you can get around those questions and still make an impact, right? And you have to be open to that and not immediately shut down and be like, I want more money too. Like,
You
sorry.
know, you know what though, in my experience, and I'm sure your experience too, they're asking for more money or more resources, or if I had this or whatever. One, they're doing a couple of different things. One, they're seeing kind of where the line is, and two, they're also asking out of ignorance because most of the organizations that we work with, you're not doing a good job of showing them where you are organizationally, is
Totally.
financially. We talk about open book transparency too, and trying to have them be a part of that. We don't get to be upset with them for not making smart financial decisions if we don't give them enough information to be able to make smart financial decisions. I mean,
Yeah.
and most organizations don't do a good job for that. And so you don't equip them with that, which means they ask ridiculous questions, which means you get upset at them for asking ridiculous questions. And then, I mean, they're totally in the dark. And so maybe give them enough information to help you succeed, because that's what they ultimately want to do, help them succeed. We ask that silly, and I don't know if you brought it up already, but it's like, how do you engage your people? You
You
engage them.
engage them.
You bring them to the table. You trust them with maybe some more information than what you used to trust people with or whatever. And I think what you'll find is they're not out to get you. They're out to support you. And if I could bring them along for the ride, man, that's how you create engagement. That's how you create loyalty. What if I am that employee that feels like, man, you're describing my life at work. I think my boss looks at me all the time as this unleadable, unmotivated person, but it's not true. Like I am. I want to work hard. I don't know, that I don't feel like they do a good job of setting me up for success like that. What do I do as an employee?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think there's several things you can do, but also several ways it could go sideways. So you do have to approach it a little delicately, right? Like, hey, boss, I think that I am capable of more. I think that I can get to a place where you and I would work really well together, but we are not aligned right now. And I think just starting a conversation with someone and saying, I just don't know what you want, and I don't know how to give you what you want, and I don't know how to get where we want to go. I think having all of those conversations are really good. Um, the other thing I think that they could do is just kind of force vulnerability by asking some hard questions like, "Hey boss, how was last quarter? Did we accomplish the goals that we were supposed to accomplish? How's the company doing? What's keeping you up at night?" I don't know that most people have those conversations with those leaders. And if you're willing to do that, you might get some great insight and answers on how the company is actually doing.
Yeah, whenever I'm in front of large groups of people, I always ask them, how many of you want to know you're doing a good job in your manager's eyes? And 100% of the hands go up. How many of you want to know if you're failing in your manager's eyes? 100% of the hands go up. And so maybe one of the things you could do is set aside some time, not just in passing in the hallway, but see if you can't get on their calendar and say, hey, I just had a couple of questions. Am I doing well in this job? Am I doing the things that you feel like I need to be doing? And you can kind of start that conversation. I would imagine both sides are probably reading it inaccurately at some point, right? Is it realistic to say people are unleadable? Not necessarily. I understand the people that you're talking about. And sometimes you just have worker bees that come in and they just put their head down and they just accomplish the task and then they go home. You need those people too, right? You need those workhorses. Also, is it unfair for an employee to think like my boss is uninspiring, unmotivated, and I can't do anything until my boss inspires me to do better? That's not fair either. Like you've got some accountability in this too. And so chances are the correct answer for this is right in the middle of that. There's some things that managers and leaders can do that can help inspire great work, and a lot of that is being able to bring them to the table and giving them a little bit more information, trusting them with some of the delegation things of the projects that you have instead of just having them do the same thing over and over again. See what kind of team you have there. Trust them with a little bit more. And the from the employees part is, man, maybe I just need to be a little bit more vocal, not in a domineering way, but just in a, hey, let's just have a conversation because I can continue to build these stories in my mind and we will get further and further and further apart. But I don't want to do that. And maybe you're already 1 foot out the door, and I would encourage you to have this conversation before you get both feet out the door because you might be reading this wrong. We would say effective communication can only happen when you recognize you might be wrong, and this is a good opportunity. This title is perfectly fit for that because I think it can happen on both sides of the conversation there too.
Totally. Yeah, totally. I agree.
All right. Well, I think we've covered it, right? I think we've covered it. If there's, I mean, other thoughts that you all have or social media questions that you have, feel free to funnel those to us. We would love your ideas on future topics that you would have, or if you said, "Hey, I listened to this episode. This is like episode 186, I think, or something like that. Hey, I'm new to the podcast. I just listened to episode 55, and I have a question about this. I don't even know what episode 55 is, but throw it out there, and we'll go back." We'll go back to it and answer some of those questions that maybe you're not familiar with too. Get a hold of us, and we always love to engage with the people. Diana, it was fun.
It was. Thank you.
Yeah, and hey, this is one of the things that we're about to do. Diana, you're getting ready to fly to the central part of Missouri here with us, or not,
Yep.
southwest part of Missouri, and we're going to go have a
Yep.
team retreat.
It's going to
Right?
be so fun. Yeah, we're
What are
going
we
to do
doing? What are we doing?
all the team builders. Well, we're going to go do old timey photos.
Old
That's
timey photos.
We're gonna do old timey photos together as a team. That's gonna be great.
Yeah.
And we're doing the Dolly Parton Stampede.
Yeah, that all is. Yeah, we're gonna rent a boat and go out
Oh
to the
yeah, we're
middle of the
renting a
lake and
boat.
play Survivor.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what's
Seriously.
going. You
No.
can swim it back.
Oh
It's gonna be
no.
fun Going to be down in Branson, Missouri next week. So anyway, looking forward to that. And as always, we just appreciate you listening to us. Share the podcast, tell your friends, let us know if you have other ideas for podcasts, and we will see you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the People Centric podcast. We are so grateful for you joining us every week. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Also, feel free to share on your social media with everyone that you know. It really does help us. If you would like to contact us, I have put our information in the show notes. Please reach out anytime. We love hearing from you. We will be back next week with a new topic. Until then, be well and